Hey, welcome to the first portion of your cognitive spiritual experience in this program. And I just really want it to be a helpful tool. I want it to be a blessing to you as well. And so I just want to give you as much information as I can. And all of us who are a part of this program as well, we are all in the helping field. We're all in the human services field and even in the ministerial area. So we want you really to benefit from this whole program and also be a blessing to other people. You may know as well that you can tell them to come and sign up. I really want to talk about, because you're going to find out throughout the whole program, we're going to talk a lot about trauma, because a lot of us are experiencing trauma. We have symptoms of trauma and we're not really able to connect. Some of us don't connect the dots. We don't correlate our symptoms or our reactions and behavior that we display that they are connected to traumatic experiences that we had even as far back as our childhood. And so understanding what trauma is and what trauma looks like can give you a better understanding and may even help you identify symptoms that you are experiencing. Like, why do I respond that way? Why do I react this way when I'm in this situation, or when this person comes around me? Why do I feel uncomfortable in my body? What that looks like. And then later on, when you get into the whole trauma triage, Dr. Gabriel Crenshaw is going to talk a lot about trauma, the brain and the body experience of trauma in the body and the cellular system, and how that plays out, from the different symptoms from nightmares to reoccurring dreams and bedwetting and all of that stuff that a lot of us experience, but we didn't connect it to a traumatic experience. So I hope to just give you more of an understanding and more of awareness, because I do always say that awareness is very powerful. It is the beginning of health. It is the beginning of a healing process. It's like when you join a Alcohol Anonymous group, you have to be aware, first of all, that you have this problem and that you need help in overcoming this problem. So you have to acknowledge it first and then process it. And so being a part of a group helps. It's like a processing group. Everybody's there for the same thing. So everybody that's in this program, something was you had some kind of interest, or it spoke to something within inside of you. You could identify with some of the things that we talked about in the course, or when you saw the description of the course, it got your attention, because you're like, you know what? I need that, because maybe there's something you need to deal with, you need to confront. And we talk a lot about that, confronting these issues. Confronting even your mindset, your thought patterns, why you think the way you do, why you feel the way you do, and be able to link it to something that you have experienced. So that's why I want you to get the understanding of what trauma is and what it looks like as well. So what I'm going to do is share my screen as usual, and I'm just going to go over the definitions of trauma, and we're going to go over some of the symptoms and the treatment for trauma. And we always encourage everybody that if you feel like, when I read over a lot of the symptoms, if you have some of those more clinical symptoms, we always encourage you to seek a therapist, somebody who can really help you deal with those root and underlying problems. Because the thing is, even though this program, and even when I work with clients as a coach, yes, I use CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy coaching. In my coaching, that is the root of a lot of the interventions that I use in REBT, reactive emotive behavioral therapy, is the root of that, my whole approach to this program, because this is what I do every day. The REBT approach is helping you deal with the mindset and the thoughts, and learning to replace those negative, those self-defeating thoughts, replacing them with something that's positive, things that are helpful to you, things that build you up. And then the spiritual comes into play when we use the word of God to transform your mindset and renew a right spirit and a healthy spirit within inside yourself. So that's a process. That's why we integrate both together, because I and my other colleagues who are part of this program believe that we are spirit, and we possess a body, a mind, and a soul. And you have to deal with the whole person, because one thing does affect the other. If your spirit is not right and you got some issues there, it's going to affect you emotionally and spiritually. It's going to affect you spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and even physically, right? Because we know that even stress can cause illness in the body. So even if you are dealing with something in your mind, it's going to affect the way you react, the way you respond, even your body reacts. Things happen in your at the cellular level of your body, so we need to address all of that. And so this is why I believe this program is going to be very helpful and beneficial for all of you who are a part of this. And having an understanding is the beginning of your process in progress as well. So that's why I have wonderful specialists helping me out, Dr. Gabriel Crenshaw, and I have the therapist, Kelly Simone Barrett. I have a Christian certified life purpose coach, and she's also a mental health professional, Michelle Scott. And Dr. Marcia Lucas is a psychologist. He's a Christian life coach. She's a mentor, and I may add more people by the time I finish this whole program. I may have other people come in, other specialists come in and share some wonderful interventions with you, some insight, some revelation, and everything, because I really want you to be whole and enhance your quality of life. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to sharing my screen so we can get into the nitty gritty. I want to find it. Here we go. Yes, here we go. I hope you can see the screen. We're going to first deal with what is trauma. Okay, what is trauma? Let's talk about that. Trauma is a powerful emotional response to a distressing event, such as war, an accident, the unexpected loss of a loved one, or abuse. Trauma can continue to cause both emotional and physical symptoms of many years after the event has concluded. Now let's look at trauma risk factors. The traumatic experience was unexpected. The victim has experienced past traumas. The experience happened repeatedly or over a prolonged period of time. The trauma occurred during childhood. Feeling of helplessness during the experience. The victim is dealing with other major stressors unrelated to the trauma. And as I said, I want to get into the symptoms of trauma, what that looks like and what that feels like. And well, I'm going to read into how this whole thing is not a comprehensive list, but it can kind of give you a lot. It covers enough though. Everyone's experience with trauma is unique. Some people will develop every symptom while others develop very few. The following list of symptoms is not comprehensive and should not be used to form a diagnosis. Now let's look at these symptoms of trauma. Avoidance of trauma reminders, including memories. You try to avoid that memory because it may trigger something within inside you, uncomfortable feelings, hurt, anger, emotional pain, stress, nervousness, anxiety. And so you try to avoid it. Flashbacks to the traumatic event. Somebody here may be experiencing some kind of flashbacks, or something, again, can trigger a flashback. Exaggerated startle response. You kind of maybe considered overreacting to something, or you get startled very easily to something. That can be a symptom of trauma. Distressing dreams and other sleep problems. Irritability, anger, and other negative emotions. And even self-blame regarding the traumatic event. You may blame yourself for a lot of the trauma that you have experienced, even though it was somebody else who maybe caused a traumatic event to happen, or you've seen some traumatic event or felt it or experienced it in some kind of way. You blame yourself. That is a severe symptom as well, because then you'll forever walk around self-condemning yourself, blaming yourself, feeling, becoming self-defeated and everything. And you'll see yourself as a self-defeated. So then that deals with issues of unworthiness, low self-esteem, and severe insecurities, and all of that. So, and let me know, if some of you experience some of this, I would like to know what you can identify with this. And doesn't mean because you experience some of these that you automatically need therapy. If you have a support system, if you're a part of a group, such as this one, but like a group where you can be with other people, whether it's online or in person, where you get to process a lot of these symptoms as well, and you're healthy enough to process it and then be able to utilize a lot of the strategies and skills that you learn to cope with these things, then that's still great. And then some of you realize, I feel like I am battling with this on a continuous basis. It's so reoccurring in your life. Then you may need therapy. You need to talk with somebody. And so let's talk about just a few of the treatments that I use to address trauma. Cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of you know about this, is abbreviated as CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a common and well-supported treatment for trauma disorders. CBT works by identifying and challenging unhealthy thinking patterns that contribute to the symptoms of trauma. The benefits of CBT can be long-lasting. Now, when you go through this whole program, you're going to see that we use a lot of CBT approaches. And most of the coaching interventions that I use are grounded in CBT and REBT, as I mentioned before, reactive emotive behavioral therapy, because it's going to deal with the mindset and replacing the mindset, or learning how to have helpful and healthy thoughts that changes the way you feel and the way you think and the way you respond and the way you react. And so REBT is actually, it actually is a part of CBT, is from CBT. So you're going to get a lot of that in this program. Exposure therapy. During exposure therapy, the patient is exposed to reminders of their trauma in gradual, in a safe way, right? Because you don't want it, the therapists don't want it to be overwhelming. As you start recalling memories, it can trigger again those emotions, those unwanted emotions and thoughts and feelings. And so they're careful with you as they help you process all of that. And because a lot of times it can be layers of stuff as well. And we don't need to open up the whole thing, like I said, can of worms. They deal with it carefully and in a safe place that you can have that, that feeling of security, and you're being supported and you're receiving help and empathy as well. A non-judgment zone and a non-condemning zone. Okay, so with let me go back. Okay, with enough exposure, the trauma begins to lose its power, right? And the symptoms diminish. Exposure therapies have extensive research support. Medication can sometimes be recommended. Before I read this, one thing, because I'm not a big advocate of medication. However, some clients that I had, some patients, sometimes they need medication for like a short run, just to help them get some kind of sense of control. And while they're getting that, or going through that whole medication management, because that's what happens. You work with a psychiatrist, they'll prescribe certain medication, maybe to manage your symptoms of anxiety or depressive symptoms or mood. You're learning the strategies to help you cope, to help you address, to help you diminish those negative feelings that you have. I like to say it is good to work with a team, because most of the people that I work with, they have a disciplinary team. So they have a coach, they have a mental health professional. That includes a mental health counselor, that can be a therapist, a social worker as a therapist, the psychiatrist, the psychologist. So they can have a team of people, even a pastoral counselor, because you're dealing with all the aspects. Like I said, you are a human being, you are a spirit, you possess a body, a soul, and a mind. And so everything needs to be addressed. And so when you get this type of support, you're empowering yourself. So medication may help you for a short time. And I always try to help my clients feel empowered by telling them that when they meet with the psychiatrist, explain to them that you don't want to become codependent on medication. You want to become so empowered enough that you learn how to utilize the strategies and coping mechanisms that's within inside of yourself, and the tools that you learn from working with mental health professionals or working with medical professionals. And that way you can wean yourself off of medication when you get strong enough to say, I can do this on my own, because you now are empowered with skills and tools and strategies to help you do just that. But anyway, so let's read a little bit about that. Medication may be used to manage the symptoms of trauma, such as anxiety, depression, and insomnia. Medication can be especially valuable when a person's symptoms are so intense that they are unable to participate in psychotherapy. So even like this course or this program, it's more, it's a coaching, right? And it may be a part of mental health coaching, but you have to be at least, I guess, healthy mentally enough, I would say, that you're able to utilize and implement everything that you learn in this program. And if you feel like you're unable to do that, you're unable to concentrate, you really find it difficult for you to grab hold, grasp an understanding, and really implement the tools and strategies, then maybe you should think about seeing a therapist, or like I said, maybe you may need medication for a short time, but I'm definitely on the other end. I'm definitely one who would tell you that I don't like anybody to be codependent on anything, because I feel like, or I do believe that as human beings, we have the power within us, but we have to learn how to tap into it. So the healing process does need to take place so you can get to that point, as well as maybe you can work with an alternative, what we call alternative doctors or alternative treatment. The reason why I don't consider it alternative is because of everything that God has made. Because when it comes to natural alternative medicine, now you're dealing with herbs and maybe essential oils and all of that kind of medicinal, I'll say, substances. That was here first. So I call that the original treatment or original medicine, not alternative, because to alter means to change something, to transform something, or to deviate away from the original state of something. And so I don't call it alternative medicine, but I know that's what they call it. But anyway, maybe you can work with a certified or licensed holistic doctor or homeopathic doctor that have natural remedies that you can use to deal with anxiety and depressive symptoms and all of that. And so for you to be empowered is to do the research and find out what else there is out there. Because you may not need to get medication. That's just become the go-to, really, unfortunately, in the country that we live in. Meds is like it. The first thing to do, a lot of people do, unfortunately, is prescribe a pill. Why don't you take a pill for this? Why don't you? It's like medication for everything. So I really believe a lot of us are so medicated, we forgot to, or how to utilize the things that God has given us, the ability to self-soothe and calm, or whatever we need to do on our own, because we are so conditioned to rely on some kind of substance to numb, but it doesn't ever heal. So I just want to put that out there, because I don't promote, but I do understand that some people need it for a short time in order to, like I said, learn a lot of things that we're going to teach, and then learn the things that you learn in therapy. Other treatments, many other treatments, such as narrative exposure therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and group therapy have all been found to be helpful for survivors of trauma. It's always okay to ask your therapist what treatments they use, and then have them explain to you, like I just did for this program. Okay, so that was what trauma is and the different type of treatments that are available for trauma. Let's look real quick at common reactions to trauma, and then we're going to stop here because you're about to move into the next lecture where I have Dr. Gabriel Crenshaw. He's going to get deeper into what trauma is, what it feels like, what it looks like, how it affects our body, our neurotransmitters, our cellular system, all of that stuff, right? But I just want to touch base with it here. Common reactions to trauma. Let's talk about re-experiencing the trauma. Trauma survivors may re-experience their trauma through thoughts, feelings, memories, and other means. Re-experiencing a trauma can be very distressing, right? Because it triggers and brings up these unwanted emotions and thoughts. They are unhelpful because then it causes distress and anxiety and the depressive symptoms that we have, right? Because of the memory of these things. So that's re-experiencing the trauma, because now all of that is back now. Even the well, we're going to get into like the nightmares and the different ways that really shows. What happens is re-experiencing a trauma can be very distressing and may trigger uncomfortable emotions such as fear, anger, and sadness. Nightmares. This is a way of re-experiencing trauma. Flashbacks, uncontrollable vivid images and memories of trauma. Distressing thoughts and feelings about the trauma. Emotional distress or physical responses after re-experiencing or experiencing a trauma reminder. Some of you feel something in your gut sometimes. It's like this, it's like people say my stomach dropped, or they stop breathing for a moment because something startled them, or they recall something that was negative or traumatic event. And this is how their body responds, because we respond to stress in different ways. And we have different responses to traumatic events or the memory of it all. So you get these distressing or emotional distress or physical responses after experiencing this. Another reaction to trauma is avoidance of trauma reminders, right? We do all kinds of things to keep us from not reminding or remembering what happened during a particular traumatic event. So because reminders of trauma can be so distressing, it is common for trauma survivors to use avoidance to control these reactions. Now, avoidance is good if you're in a situation where you can feel rising anxiety, you can feel anger rising, you can feel your body going through all of these negative changes in mood. And if you need to remove yourself from a certain place or person, because you're trying to avoid escalation of some type of negative impulsive reaction or behavior that would cause things to get worse or explosive, then in a situation like that, yes, it's best to remove yourself so you can go and de-escalate yourself. If you have any tools and strategies on how to calm yourself down, relax your nervous system before you go into decomposition, and you just need a break and you need to calm down your mind, your brain, all of that, then do that, because actually you're helping yourself and you may be helping somebody else. But anyway, using drugs or alcohol to suppress uncomfortable thoughts and emotions, that's also a way people sometimes avoid, which works to be a double negative, right? Because now you become addicted to a drug again, or illegal drugs, or even prescription drugs or alcohol, because all it does is suppress uncomfortable thoughts and emotions, right? Because you want to feel numb. You don't want to be reminded of the traumatic event because you don't want to go through how it's going to make you feel. But the problem is you become addicted to something else. So now you got an addiction problem on top of that. So this is the things you want to avoid. Avoidance of activities related to the trauma, avoidance of people, places, or things related to the trauma, suppressing thoughts related to the trauma, right? And that's a natural preservation or a way to cope with something. You're trying to suppress it. You don't even want it to come up. Sometimes these things work in your favor, but sometimes they don't, except for the drugs and all of that, right? Avoidance of conversations about the trauma. You don't always need to go into conversation unless you're in therapy, right? Negative thoughts or feelings. Negative thoughts or feelings may begin or worsen after experiencing a trauma. Some of these thoughts and feelings might not seem to relate directly to the trauma. So let's go through some of these. Excessive blame toward oneself or others related to the trauma. Sometimes you blame yourself for something that somebody else did to you, or how they might have violated you, and you blame yourself. Well, maybe if I would have did this, and maybe this, and always, you know, to me, what it is like a self-defeated thought or belief, negative core belief about yourself, which then causes issues with self-worthiness. Like, you don't feel worthy of anything. You have poor self-esteem about yourself. You have severe or intense insecurities about yourself. So you always walk around what we call with a victim mentality, right? So that's walking around with excessive blame, loss of interest in activities, feelings of isolation or disconnection from your surroundings, difficulty experiencing positive feelings. So you have a hard time even embracing or experiencing that, or even experiencing, I would say, for a long time. You quickly let it go. It's hard for you to even identify or relate to that because you walked around, you know, being traumatized or victim of trauma for so long, you don't even know what that feels like. And it's funny, I've talked to some people, even clients of mine, who don't even believe that it's possible to be more of the person who see the glass half full. They're so used to seeing the glass half empty. So to them, they think you're fake or that's unreal, because for them, that's been their experiences. So they think people who seem to be more of a happy-go-lucky person, they real, that's fake. They putting on because they have not experienced that. They have not had majority of happy times or good times, or, you know, that joy, I would say inner joy, long enough to believe that they can actually live a life like that. So this is when you really need, okay, I need to talk with somebody. I need to process these thoughts and these feelings. Okay, where are we at? We are in, okay, difficulty experiencing positive feelings, loss of memory related to the trauma, excessive negative thoughts about oneself or the world, always seeing the bad things going on in the world, carrying the world on your shoulders constantly. That's very burdensome. You know, so then you bring on more stresses because of that. Hyperarousal. Let's talk about hyperarousal. Reactivity, or a feeling of being on edge, may begin or worsen after experiencing a trauma. This category includes a broad range of physical and psychological symptoms: becoming irritable, quick to anger or aggressive, heightened startle reaction, difficulty concentrating, frequently scanning the environment or watching for trauma reminders, difficulty sleeping, feelings of anxiety and related symptoms such as a racing heart, upset stomach, or headaches, and risky or impulsive behaviors. So those are some of the reactions to trauma. And so I just wanted to kind of go over this so you can get a better understanding, if you don't know, first of all, what trauma is and what it looks like. And then maybe if you're experiencing some of this, for you, it may be an aha moment, like, okay, now you're able to connect. You're able to correlate some traumatic event with the way you may behave or react to certain things. And so that's pretty much what I wanted you to be informed and have this, at least this base knowledge of traumatic, the effects of trauma. And you're going to get so much more in all of the next lectures that are coming within the program. So I hope that was very helpful. I'm going to unshare my screen. And that is the end of that portion. I hope it was very helpful, informative as well. And I believe the more we know, we are more empowered because we have the information and we have the knowledge. And it takes that first before you can even move on and get the help that you need, right? Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next lecture where you will see me and Dr. Gabriel Crenshaw talking about a lot more of these events before we really get into some more of the meat of the course. Be well.